get after it, man.
Cool.
So Ben, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on, taking the time to do this. Met you officially face to face a couple weeks ago. Your reputation on Instagram, definitely when I put out that post saying that you're going to be on the show, I got a whole bunch of fucking hell yes.
Nice.
We gotta get this guy on here. And directly after that is he has no filter. So
yeah. I'll try and use my filter to the best of my ability.
No, man, keep it wide open. I appreciate taking the time to do this. I'm stoked to get into the convo. So welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cool, buddy. So we'll jump in like we were just talking about. Let's chat a little bit about your history and where you're from and maybe grew up, family history, things like that before we dive into a few topics that are heated about the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from a small town, Bishop, California, and kind of bounced back and forth between Bishop and SoCal a little bit. My dad, he worked for DWP as a power plant operator. And so always been around electricity. I grew up underneath the 500 line most of my life. And so whenever the fog would roll in, I hear those cracks and always kind of wonder what was going on up there. So I was a welder right out of high school and got laid off. I was making like $14 an hour, and it was just a horrible time because I was big money for me, and I just couldn't imagine what I could do that would be better than welding. And so I got two flyers.
Sorry to all the welders.
Oh yeah. So I got one flyer. It was for NLC, and then I got another flyer is to be an underwater welder. And so I was kind of tossed up between the two, and the training was shorter for getting in power lines. And I've always loved heights and adrenaline, and didn't really feel like fighting off sharks. So that's how I got into the trade. Just kind of fell into it, really.
If you could go back, like I've learned a little bit about underwater welding, and like that's kind of interesting to me though. Like
it was intriguing because I know the welder I was working for, he's like, well, whatever you do, don't pull off your ground or else you're going to get electrocuted. I was like, well, between that and sharks, like it's probably not a good mix, but it was 9 months school on the East Coast, and so I had a young family at the time, and it just wasn't as feasible. I had zero money. Like I had like $150 in the bank account. So I took out a loan and headed up to Idaho. Just kind of seemed to fit better.
How do you figure, like I ask most people this question, just how did you find line work and find the trade? How did you come to know line work?
It was pretty much just luck, because my dad had a buddy who was a lineman just because he worked for Department of Water and Power. And so that's where he got the flyer from. He just brought it home. He didn't really even know what lineman did. And so I looked at him like, oh, climbing poles and riding on helicopters sounds pretty sweet. And so, it just looked right up my alley. And then as soon as I got into NLC up there and started learning more about it, like it all clicked. It was really easy for me.
So that's where you started? You started with NLC?
Yep, up in Meridian.
When you started looking at it, was it just like, okay, I got the flyer, I'm going straight to NLC, or what made you choose? Just because I get this question a ton, and especially get this question on TikTok, tons. I got 30,000 followers on TikTok, and all of them are kids wanting to know about how to get into the trade, right, or what school to go to, or what. They're so confused, and it's hard to get it across. So like, what made you totally choose NLC? Was it just the flyer and you went with it, or what?
Well, and it was honestly a lot easier back then because there was Northwest Line College and then Southeast Line College, and I think there might have been a little one in Texas, but there really wasn't a whole lot as far as like line colleges go. And so when I went through and graduated, I actually had a handful of sign-on offers with sign-on bonuses, moving bonuses from all these utilities and everything. And now when you go, like most of these kids are getting turned out, and, they are either working at, cell towers or telephone, like they're not even getting into the trade. Yeah. And so whenever anybody, any followers, whatever, ask me about that, I usually discourage them away from that just because of how much it costs. And there's no guarantee versus just going and signing the books and getting your CDL on your own. Kind of the way it seems to be right now. The schools just really saturate kids out into the market. And I don't know, it's just my personal viewpoint on it right now. It's different than it was 16 years ago.
No, I get it fully. And I feel bad for these guys because they do invest a lot of money into it, and they want it. But to upfront that cost to go to school and to potentially come out with nothing, like a lot of them are saying, like, hey, I've been in telecom for 3 years
Right.
after exiting, or I haven't found a job. And I get the current political and, you know, global situation.
Yeah.
That aside, it's hard to get into the industry unless you know somebody.
It is. And then, you know, one of the biggest problems I've seen with most of these kids too is that they don't want to leave home. Like I've lived in, now that I'm in Nevada now, this is the 12th state that I've actually resided in a home in, because I've gone anywhere to do what I need to do. You know, so for my apprenticeship, I didn't care where I was going. I ended up going to Virginia. I'd never been there, never met anyone there. I didn't give a shit. I was going just to top out, and I would do anything. And you don't really have a whole lot of that anymore, where people are willing to do whatever it takes to get their journeyman card.
That's like, I had Ben Holmes on, and he was at a lineman rodeo in Kansas, and literally had an opportunity thrown at him at the rodeo to go show up in Texas, and he was in California. So he literally flew home to California, got in his truck, drove to Texas, started his apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Just that willingness to go and do something. I keep saying that to guys too. Is like, you got to be able to travel. You got to be able to go at a moment's notice and do what it takes to get into the trade. And a lot of guys, that's the killer for them. I don't want to leave home. Well, You got to leave Idaho, and you got to go somewhere where there's some work.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But I mean, that's what makes, you know, a good lineman versus just a regular lineman is someone who's willing to do whatever it takes. And that sucks. You know, like, you know, there's a lot of great things about this job. There's a lot of shitty things about this job too. Like it's tough. It's tough on your family. It's tough on your body, and it's tough mentally. It's tough on everything. But you have to be tougher. You know, it's eye on the prize.
Where did it take you? So you went to NLC, you spit out, and how did you get into the trade after that? End up in telecom.
I refused. I wouldn't. I had a job offer down in South Texas for like $12 an hour. And at that point in time, I wasn't sure how far east I could go. And so I didn't go to school to be a telephone guy. Like, I went to play with electricity. And so I went straight to Virginia out of line school and worked for Dominion Virginia Power. Did my apprenticeship there, and then after that, just kind of bounced all over because I wanted experience. Went to helicopter work, transmission, distribution. Like, I just want to learn everything about everything, you know, which is why I got into that bare hand school also. Like, I want to know all facets of it, you know, before I have to move into management or something else, some other form of knowing line work from a different angle.
See, this is what I don't get when these guys, and if you're listening, guys, like, they ask me this question, well, I haven't been able to get a job, and I don't buy it. Like, have you not been able to get a job in the city you live in BF nowhere?
Yep.
Or have you really gone to look for a position somewhere? Because the last podcast I recorded, just a solo about saying yes to things. So saying yes, and the opportunity that saying yes provides, and how you don't know if you say yes to something and then you go do it, like you did, said yes, I don't care if it's $12 an hour and whatever, it gets me there, and it provides me an opportunity to potentially get somewhere and gets that to that next level. But you got to go do it to try it and find out. That's what these people, they're just not getting. Like, it's not sinking in with them that you got to leave mom and dad's house and you got to go somewhere and you got to try it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like a good example of that recently was that for this bare hand training, they offered it to me like 3 months ago, and work got slower and slower and slower. And so I was only doing 50 hours a week, if that, and I was off for most of December. But if I would have drug hard, then I wouldn't have got to go to that training. So I really had to almost take 2 steps back as far as like, I'm not even making any money to get to a bigger goal of getting bare hand certified, which will open up other doors if I want to walk through them someday.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing with this trade, man. And that's the thing with kids. They got to understand that. I've tried to tell them, I try to say it as much as I can on this podcast and on social. What do you offer for advice to those guys? Like, you must get hit up tons.
Yeah, I get it quite a bit. I don't respond as much as I used to because they all say the same thing every time. And yeah, they all want to know if I can get them a job. They want to know if they can get a job at home. And very few of them want to get a job anywhere. And I tell them all the same thing. Go sign the books. Go get your CDL. Be proactive about it. Don't just sit around and wait for somebody to do something for you, because no one's going to do anything for you unless they're related to you. And even then, you're going to be a garbage lineman because you didn't have to fight for it. Like, yeah. And that's one reason why I think that apprentices should be treated a little more, I guess, hostile than a lineman, is because once you reach being a journeyman and you've earned that respect, it means so much more than if you were treated the same way throughout your whole apprenticeship. Like, it should be hard for you. It should be hard for anybody who's trying to accomplish anything to then appreciate where you're at. So, you know, I'm just a little old school when I look at how to handle apprentices.
What was your apprenticeship like?
I didn't think it was great at the time, but looking back and, you know, working around a bunch of different companies and other apprenticeships, it was actually pretty solid. They did a pretty good job. It was structured well. It was not quite like it is today, where like I was a second step and I was going up gloving 34.5 every day. So I never really had to stay on the ground because they could put you in places where they felt like you belonged, whether your step allowed it or not. And so it's different now. You know, you're not hot till third or fourth step, you know, at the least. So it was difficult for me because I gloved every day from step 2 to step 5. And then at that point, they realized I hadn't done any secondaries yet. And so then I had to go back and go do secondaries or run a secondary crew for like 6 months. And it was just the worst. I hated it. It was just so beneath me, but it was good. It was a good reality check. Like, even the best line would have to dig up secondary faults and, you know, do stuff that they don't want to do.
Did you get rode a lot for being like, I kind of was at the same spot, and my foreman rode the shit out of me, but there was no other fucking option. So, he's up in the bucket. He needs to spend more time on the ground. I'm like, well, there's only 3 of us and you're on the ground, and
right.
The air requires 2 people. So what the fuck do you want me to do?
Right.
Like,
yeah, no, I had one foreman in particular, and I learned the most from him. I worked for him for 2 years than I ever learned from anybody else my whole career. And this dude was brutal. Like, he would get so mad, just screaming, spit mad. And, but the guy knew his shit. And if I messed up and he screamed at me, I took it every single time. There was only once or twice where he screamed at me and I did nothing wrong. And I actually respectfully let him know, like, no, it's bullshit. I didn't do it. So we had a really good relationship as far as that goes. And then he kind of learned over time that if he saw me do something that wasn't quite right, he would yell at the guy next to me about it. And I would look over and be like, oh shit, he definitely meant that was for me. And so it was pretty funny. Like, he would find somebody else to be a punching bag because he didn't like being too hard on me. And I learned from it. So I've actually adapted a lot of his ways, not quite as brutal as he is, but I've tried to incorporate the way he built up his team, in that way.
I get it. I was similar. I appreciate the way that he went about it. It's like the bare hand class. Like I don't think I'd want to go through it again.
Yeah,
I appreciate what it is, and it is a fantastic course. So like same with apprenticeship, like I don't think I'd want to go through it again, but going through it was pretty good. And I do appreciate the way my foreman treated me. Looking back on it now, I did learn a lot through it, but that goes to perspective. So like, that's what I'm trying to teach younger guys too, is like, go through it with that kind of mindset.
Yep.
Like these guys are here for a reason. They're trying to get something across to you. And this thing could be life-saving, like really could. So shut up and listen and learn from them. Maybe they don't have the best techniques and tactics
Sure.
at getting this across, but try to do your best to learn from how they're trying to present it. That's all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's tough in the moment too, because, no matter how old you are as an apprentice, you're 22, you're just coming out you think you're a man, but you're not, and so you're trying to establish your manhood, or whether it's like the apprentices we have now where they're coming out starting at 35, 40 years old and actually are men. And so, you definitely have to figure out the best way to approach everybody individually, and still give respect to veterans or older guys, or even kids that are just smart but green, but also put them in their place and let them know that they don't know shit, and if they think that they know more than they do, they're going to kill themselves or somebody else. So it's definitely something that could be a little tricky, and it was probably my first 2 years of running a crew, like I didn't really get it, and then it all kind of clicked in for me, because I was choosing friends over the appropriate crew that I should have. And I definitely learned a big lesson in that.
When you finished apprenticeship, what did you start out doing? More distribution, transmission? Like, how did it look for you when you exited apprenticeship?
Yeah, I went in transmission a little bit, did some helicopter work. I did that for probably about 8 months or a year. And, I had a brand new baby at home, and, a wife and everything. And so I was flying all over the country and was never home, like at all. Like I would have to fly them out just to see me, once every 6 or 8 weeks. And so then I quit that, and then I went and got a job in Delaware. And that's where I actually met that foreman that I worked for 2 years. And I developed the most in that first really 2 years of being a journeyman. And that was distribution. So that was a good job. A lot of intense. Is up near Philly, so there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's pretty cool.
What's your take? Because you probably see a lot of this too right now. I see a lot of it on social media. What's your take on helicopter work right now?
In what facet?
So I'm struggling with it because I see where the industry's going with it. I see the way guys on social media are presenting the work methods used in some heli work, and I'm nervous for them, if that's the right word.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
sure.
I look at some of the techniques and methods used in some of the helicopter work, and I'm like, it doesn't really seem right. I know it's like you're getting a snapshot, so I take it with a grain of salt. I really do. And I'm not judging anybody or anything. It's not coming from a place of judgment. I look at it and I go, oh man, that looks fucking sketchy.
Sketchy. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I saw a video, it was a couple months ago, and it was actually a video of a couple guys that went down, and they lost their life. And it was a video from a previous day. And I saw some of the techniques that they were using, and it definitely worried me, because they're on a long line and they were putting spacers in. And so instead of working it from the outside and reaching over the wire, the helicopter came down and they chose to go underneath the wire and work it from the other side. And that's all bad if pilots got to pull out. I just think it's a lot of inexperience
It's little
And
things, right? Like
it's little
like,
fine things that get you wound up. Yep.
yeah. Yeah.
And so that also leads to people not wanting to hurt feelings and, tell someone that they did something the wrong way. And I check all feelings at the door. Like I really don't care about feelings. Ultimately, I do. Like I want my guys to be happy and everything, but first of all, it's working safe, efficient, and getting everything done the right way, not just any way that'll work. I don't believe in that.
Yeah. No, it like I said, I don't get the full context of it, but I really worry for the industry and for guys, like whether I just want to make sure people are using them for the right reasons. It's like getting into line work. Are you doing it for the right reasons, or are you using a helicopter for all the right reasons? Like, are you being lazy?
Right. Yeah.
Or are you using that machine appropriately? Like, can you actually not access what you're trying to get to? So that's why you're trying to get there. Or
Right.
could you just walk to it and hike the pole and do it? Like,
Sure.
just because it's cool factor, take the risk reward into consideration. Like, there's a lot of risk and risk management that goes into that, that's maybe not being considered.
Absolutely.
That's the only thing that's freaking me out about.
Yeah.
I've seen
I agree.
too many GoFundMe pages these days, and I don't like to see that. It's
No,
too much.
there's a lot. And then even just from the aspect of, you see guys go through so much trouble to try and get a bucket truck to a pole, where you could have been done 2 hours before if you just strap up, go up there and do whatever it is, and then come down. But like when it's time to volunteer to climb a pole, people usually get pretty fucking quiet. And like that's disappointing to me, because all that tells me is that you're here for the money. Like, you don't really love the history of it. Like I got a chance to go through the museum up there at the Lazy Q.
Phenomenal.
I thought it was incredible. Like we left 2 hours before I wanted to leave. Like I wanted to sit in there and hang out all day and look at all that stuff. Like I just have a love for the history of it, and just a true passion for the core of line work. And the money's great. Like I love the money, but you can make other money doing other things. I really enjoy line work. I get line work. It makes sense to me and it's fun for me. Most of the time.
Well, this is what I was just talking to a guy about this today. We were talking about how we get across to the people coming into the trade about what they're a part of when they join the trade. And I'm like, history is so short, and you're a part of history, meaning, okay, so I'm listening to this podcast that's talking about the history of like the 300 that, like at the gates of hell, the 300 that stood up. And I'm talking about, you're a part of history. So like Europeans come to the Americas and they come as tradesmen, right? They start building buildings. They come as masonries. They come as iron workers. And eventually electricity's forms this trade called power line work. So whether you believe or accept it right now or not, you're part of this history that is power line work. And you're a tradesman. And I don't think that a lot of people are fully grasping that they're a part of a trade and a part of something that's like bigger than themselves and that goes throughout history, and that they're like actually a part of that and really buy into that. And that's what's so cool about going through a museum like that. You can see like where you came from. And even though it's like a short-lived history, like we're not tracking line work back into like 2500 BC, but we have a history now and we're a part of it. And that's what I'm trying to get people to like see and buy into, is like, it's a new trade, but it's a valuable trade. We're building America. We're building what's going to be like 300 years from now. People are going to be talking about this time in history when electricity was formed, and these people that built it and managed the infrastructure. I don't know. That shit's cool to me. I know it's not cool to everybody. Some guys are just there for the paycheck and they don't care.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys.
Well, and if you look at the trade and look at the tools we use and the insulators and pole, like it hasn't really evolved that much as far as like insulators, like hooks, your gaffs that you wear, like it's pretty much the same. Like, yeah, they got Velcro on now. Like, you know, like the only thing that's really evolved is just tools as far as like, you know, Milwaukee, Makita, they've come out with a bunch of cool shit to make it easier. But as far as the structure of power lines, it's pretty much the same. Like we're putting back like for like, you know, cross arms and insulators. So it's pretty cool as long as Elon Musk doesn't get in the way with his batteries and make everything teleport everywhere.
Even then, I don't know. There's going to be some shit to tear down, I guess.
Oh yeah, there you go. Collecting insulators.
So after apprenticeship, you get into distribution. Where does it go from there? You did a little bit of heli work. Where do you end up after that?
So I ended up going from a bunch of my family lived out in California, and I had a buddy who came out. He took a job for PG&E, and he's like, dude, massive sign-on bonuses, like making a shit ton of money, like all the overtime in the world. I was like, all right, like I'll do this utility thing. And so moved to San Jose, took a job with PG&E, big sign-on bonus and moving expenses and all this stuff. And within 3 months, I was ready to eat a bullet. I was like, I cannot do this. But I would have to pay back like 65 grand if I would quit. And so I was kind of stuck.
For how long?
And I ended up being there for 5 years. Yeah. So the last half of it was, I was trying to keep my family together, and that was a fighting, losing battle there. But so worked there for 5 years, made good money. I felt like I was dumber every single day that I came into work than the day before. Just did not evolve as a lineman, and it made me sick. And so I left there and came back outside. I think my first call was hotline, par, like kind of all over. And then I fell in with in San Diego, started doing transmission work down there. And so for the 5 years I was at PG&E, I was running a crew. And so I wanted to come out and just be a lineman. And within the first probably 3 weeks, they asked me to push a crew. I was like, no, like I really am just enjoying not giving a shit right now and being a lineman. And within a month of that, they tricked me into it. Someone went on vacation. I filled in for them, and then that was the end of that. And so was pushing a crew for them, and it was like 60 work, pretty easy. And then we moved to go do a reconductor over the Grapevine, and so they wanted me to push that crew also. I was like, look, I don't have enough experience pushing crews on transmission, especially not dead ending. Like I really don't want any part of it. And they convinced me to do it. I don't know how Jay Clark did, but they convinced me to do that, and it worked out really well. Picked it up real quick, and we were smashing a lot of wire. So it went well, but that was a lot of helicopter work, and that was adverse weather conditions for sure. Not a whole lot of fun up on top of that hill.
So what do you think it is? This is a good segue into leadership then, because it's like you're just kind of naturally go towards a leadership position. I found myself in a similar position all throughout my life, even if you don't want it. Like I grew up in a small town in the central British Columbia. My father owned a power line company. So I apprenticed through him, and naturally, as you're coming up through apprenticeship, it's just like, once you're done, you're running shit. Like I need you, your family, you're dependable. Like you're taking a crew, you're taking whatever, even as an apprentice, you're just like pushed into some sort of, okay, go make decisions. Right.
Yep.
You're kind of groomed for it. Is that just a special person? Is that always the way you've been, or can people really learn that?
Honestly, I kind of think you're born with at least the core of it, and then you kind of develop into the rest of it on some level. Because I try to always evolve as a leader. I try to learn from my mistakes and see what works, see what's successful, what's not. Sometimes what's successful is really not very popular, but it works really well. So for me, it was just, I couldn't stand sitting back and watching just fuckery go on around me and be okay with it. And so you just kind of, you speak up, and then you say stuff and you yell and you get up there and you do it. And then before you know it, somebody saw it or somebody told somebody else about it. And it's just the way it's always gone for me. Definitely not the most politically correct guy. I've definitely ruffled some feathers, but I can definitely lead, whether I like it or not.
So what is it like? What does it take? What does it take then? Okay, let's start with that. What does it take to be a leader in the powerline industry today?
I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, it takes, a love for what you're doing, a deep understanding for what you're trying to accomplish and what the risks are and how everything goes sideways. And then being abrupt, making decisions, even if it's the wrong decision. Like sometimes you just have to make a decision and go with it. Obviously not to the point where someone's going to get hurt or anything, but if you've got a group of guys and they want to do it 3 different ways, they'll sit there and argue about it for an hour and completely nullify the time won or the time that you would have gained by doing it whichever way. And so I'll just jump in and say, we're doing it this way. I don't care. It doesn't matter who likes it or doesn't. Like, that makes most sense. Just go and do it. And so it's decision making. People can get behind that.
What is the trade missing right now when it comes to leadership? All of those things.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing it's missing is experience. A lot of our older guys they're not there. They're either retired or, they're not that good. Unfortunately, if there's older guys in our career or in our path of work and they're in their 50s and just a lineman, they're just a lineman for a reason. And so it's hard to take stock in something someone like that says when you're not capable of being a leader at that age. So it just kind of left up to younger guys like us to really step up and want to be the best, and then want to bring everybody else and raise everyone else to the level that you expect. And the main thing I tell all my apprentices this at some point or another, especially if I get a good one that shows promise, almost all the time, they will, if it's an apprentice in the bucket with a lineman who's not the best or another apprentice, they'll work down to their level just because they're a lineman. And that's unacceptable to me. Like, you force other people to raise up to your standards. Like, if you're good, don't just sit there and go along with another guy just because he's a JL and he's doing stupid stuff. Like, raise everyone else to your level, work to your level, and make them work up to your level. And so that's what I try and do. If, like, I'll go climb a pole, I don't care. Like, I'll be the first one on a pole, I'll be the first one in a bucket, first one on a helicopter. I don't care. Like, I'll do anything. I'll never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do either. And anyone that's worked for me will tell you that also. They'll tell you I'm an asshole, but they'll also tell you I'm a good lineman.
What is that? Just like, it just seems like you naturally have that, but is it something that's like, is this something that can be trained into people? Like, are we missing something coming from utilities companies, whatever, on training how to, like, cope with this position and how to deal and do this position of leadership, whatever that position is, like how to be a leader?
Yeah. Tough love. I think it really gets you somewhere. I had an apprentice that worked for me at PG&E, and he was a really good apprentice, and he worked for me for almost 4 years, most of his apprenticeship. And not one time did this kid ever come out of the air and I tell him he did a good job. As brutal as that sounds, I always found something that he could have done better. And the day he topped out, like, that was the day I told him how proud of him I was, how good of a job he did, how good of an apprentice he was. Like, I actually kicked my brother off my crew and made him my lead lineman the day he topped out. Like and he never would have guessed that would have happened. Nobody would have, but I don't care who you are, best friend, brother, like it doesn't matter. The best qualified guy should get that job, and he earned it. He did a good job, and I will definitely not say his name because I don't want him to hear
this. Head's gonna grow 3 sizes.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
What's your advice to these guys then?
Don't take your foot off the pedal. Like grind, and when no one's looking, like every day out on the job, you're building your resume. Every day you're building relationships, and that's all, especially on the outside, working outside line. That's all you have is the name, your name and your reputation. And, you know, like when you watch football and they show wide receivers that took the play off and didn't put their effort in, I see that every day out on the job, and I remember that. Because if I'm ever running a job, I'm going to know who's actually giving it their all versus who's just going to dick off. And so give it your all every day. Especially if you're an apprentice, do not stand around and talk to journeyman like you're a journeyman. Go clean a bin, always be doing something, because that goes noticed, and that'll get you a lot farther than bullshitting with the fucking JLs.
Yeah, that's great. This is the one thing that I just wish that everyone, like, we get across to everyone: keep moving, keep doing something. Don't get in the jail's way. Be of use. Always be thinking of how you can be useful to your leadership, whatever that is, whether it's a GL, foreman, whatever, how you could be of use to them, knowing what you know. Don't try to know more. Don't try to show yourself to be better than you are. Just do what you can do, and do it to the best you can do it.
And for God's sakes, please have tape and a pair of goddamn coins on you. Jesus.
Always. Knife
even just, dude, go wash windows. Like, I did that when I was an apprentice. Like, that's part of, go wash windows, go do anything to be helpful and show that you're actually there to work.
Dude, I had my little medicine bag. I had It had all my tools in it. Plus it also had like this little broom that I would sweep the exactly.
Oh yeah.
Sweep the floor, the bucket out with. And then I had like a bottle of like fucking, it was either Mother's or Armor All or whatever I had, and a rag. Like I was always wiping a dash, cleaning a boom, like whatever you can do to just look busy and help out. Like, if that's all you got, that's all you got, right? At least do that. Don't try to do more. You're going to learn that later.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
well, and if push comes to shove, if I need a groundman or an apprentice for something, and I've got two that are equal talent, but one of them, I get in my truck and there's no trash on the floor and the windows are clean, like, that dude's getting chosen every single time over the other guy.
This is what they don't get.
Not that hard.
They ask me all the time, like, how do I stand out? How do I stand out besides the guy, like from the guy beside me? So I go all the time pre-COVID, go all the time to pre-apprentice classes. And I would talk for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever they got me to come in and talk about the trade. And I would always get, questions. Guy would ask a question. Well, how do I stand out? How do I get a job? And I'm like, how do you get a job? Ask yourself the question. So I'm like, okay, so yeah, you join this pre-app class. So there's 15 of you in this class. How do you stand out against the guy beside you? I'm like, I'm hiring for this company right now. There's 15 of you. I only got 2 spots. Why do you stand out? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, what do you do that's different than the guy beside you? All 15 of you took this pre-app class. What did you do that's different? Well, I can run a crane. Okay, perfect. That's, like that makes you stand out beside the guy. Who else in here can run a crane? 5 hands go up. Okay. Out of you 5, what makes you different than him? I don't know. Like, you gotta keep doing shit. You can't just think it's like, okay, I did a pre-app course, I can climb now. Right on. You should hire me. No, fuck. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. Like, keep doing things.
Don't take your foot off the pedal ever. Let's keep finding the drive. However, it gets harder. It doesn't get easier to keep your foot on the pedal. The more you learn, the more you're into it, like the less shit surprises you. Still got to put your foot on the pedal and be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like,
so what about work ethic? What do you see in work ethic in the trade right now?
yeah, it's pretty bad for the most part. It's pretty rough. But that's where
What's
all
causing it?
It's this generation, really, I don't know, social media and just always being on your phone, watching TV, like just everything revolves around a screen of some sort. You don't have kids wrenching with their dads anymore. You're not, they're not building a lawn care business when they're 12 years old like I did. Like they're selling shit on, Craigslist. I don't really know what kids are doing now. Video game tournaments and stuff like that. So this it's just kind of gotten away. And so, that's our job as leaders, is to reinstill that by example. And so I'll go out there and I'll dig a fucking hole just to show that I'm not too good to dig a hole. And if I yell at you to dig a hole, don't think it's because I won't do it. It's because it's your job. Like I will also do it if I have to. So yeah, just everything comes back to leadership, and then, not being afraid to smoke some guys. Like if they suck, if they're a safety hazard, or if they're just not cutting it, then cut them loose, get rid of them. And that's the biggest problem with utilities right now, is that it's almost impossible. It's hard to get rid of that. And so that's kind of why you have a gap there, as far as, guys at the utility try to get away with a lot of stuff, and they do, because they're very protected. But, on the outside, you're going to work and showing up, and if you don't cut it, you can get fired any day, for pretty much any reason. So you have to fight a lot more.
I'm trying to instill to kids coming into this that, okay, they have, like you said, they have all this screen influence. And I'm not talking from an old guy's perspective. I get it. I'm on social media every day. I'm trying to run businesses off of social.
Sure.
I get it. But I get on TikTok and it's nonstop. Make $1 million drop shipping on Amazon, or make $1 million drop shipping whatever, or make $1 million doing this, make $1 million doing that in a month. And then, well, why the hell would I want to do a trade?
Right. Yeah.
And I just want to scream at them, like, because it's actually real.
Yeah.
Like, you want something tangible, like, I'm not calling all that other shit not real. It's real. You can do it. I get it. The internet's an amazing thing. And I don't think the trade world really grasps what the internet fully is either, and its capabilities. But if you're into the outdoors, if you're into building shit with your hands, which lots of people are, they're not into sitting on screens and drop shipping shit. They want to build stuff and travel and be outside and build things and build a brotherhood and do all these amazing things, travel the world. Like, linework is a great opportunity for that. Not only does it do all those things, but it pays really good too. Like, and you can have whatever life you really want to have doing that.
Yeah. Well, and just to piggyback off that a little bit, one of the biggest deciding factors of getting into line work was job security. And so I sat and talked with my dad, and he said, look, if there's no electricity, then what kind of world are we living in? Like, if they don't need linemen and electricity, then all you need are guns and rations. And so you take that to this pandemic over, last year. Look at all the small businesses. Look at everybody who wasn't working, couldn't work. Everybody. Linemen didn't skip a beat. Like, no. I took 2 months off just because I was tired of working so much. Like, it was unreal. Like, we're still going full speed ahead, and the rest of the world is at a screeching halt. And so that right there is just another reason why I made the right decision to get into line work. Like,
and it's so right, because my dad said the same thing. They sound similar. We were chatting, and he's like, nobody can do what we're doing. Like, you can't take a doctor and build a 3-phase bank and energize it and energize a hospital. Like, you can't you can't do that without us. You can't figure it out. You can't put power lines back in the air. You can't build shit. You can't make it all work without us. You just can't do it. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah,
And
good point.
you watch the pandemic go by and you see linemen exactly like yourself taking 2 months off. I took 6 months, basically quit 6 months, started building a business within it. Like, it's an industry where you can thrive if you really want to put into it. And there's a place for us for a long time until Elon discovers a way to...
Yeah, that's not our problem though. That's the next generation's problem.
True story. Oh man. Mentors in the trade. You got mentors that you want to mention, or that you've really learned from, that you want to go, hey, I learned this from them?
Yeah, so I got the one that I spoke about earlier. His name was Cap. Good dude. I actually talked to him. I don't talk to him very often, but he called a couple months ago to talk shit. So that was nice. There's another guy, Dave Painter. He works PG&E. He's a pretty good lineman, very knowledgeable about the spec book. Like, he knew that thing inside and out. And so, like, coming into California, like, I see this 4-inch spec book for just overhead. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I don't follow spec books. And, well, you're kind of forced into learning it. And then, you know, I came back outside, and, you know, that helps you a lot, knowing, understanding spec. And, you know, as a contractor working for a utility, if you have poles with no go backs, that makes you look like a superstar. So him forcing me to go by that stupid spec book really paid off, coming back out and pushing crews, because that taught a work ethic that I hated, which is this ticky-tacky stuff. But it's all go-back stuff that costs your company that you're working for money, and then it costs your reputation because you look like an idiot going back to the same pole you were just at, you know, 3 weeks before. So, and then besides that, just a couple peers that have just pushed me, you know, to stay on my game. Blaine Rodriguez and then Isaac Dimmitt, both solid dudes that have helped me a lot.
What else in this trade have you picked up on that you like? What else do you want to speak about within the trade that's on your heart to chat about and get across to the guys coming up or guys in it?
I'd like to see more people seeking out the trade versus seeking out the money. So, like, you have a lot of, like, utility guys that that they get into line work, but they were a meter reader or worked in the mailroom or whatever before, and typically don't turn out to be very good linemen because they didn't get into line work, they fell into it. So people that choose to be a lineman are typically better linemen. And then honestly, like, where I feel like the biggest shift with line work and the issues that we have now come from fall restraints and people not being scared to climb anymore. A lot of the danger being taken out of it has allowed people that are not quite hardcore enough to be in the trade, and that's caused issues as far as safety issues, like being too safe, not being scared. Like, you should be scared to climb 100-foot, free climb 100-foot pole. Like, that's a great feeling to have and to harness. So I wish that some of these young guys would come out. Like, I know you can't free climb, but at least have like a week of free climbing with the, you know, monkey tail on the back and a harness. Just if there is somebody that's hurt at the top of the pole and I see some guy put on a buck squeeze, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. Like, you don't put on a buck squeeze and climb past a bunch of secondary and double safety over everything when someone's dead on the pole. Like, you need to know how to free climb and how to get up the pole. And that's a rule I'll break if someone's dead on the pole. Like, I don't care.
How would you, so that's interesting. How would you train? Like, so if you had a group of guys brand new into it, how would you go about training them to climb?
I would start off with free climbing, and really build the fundamentals of technique and keeping your ass out, locking out your legs, you know, how to hold the pole, all that stuff before you cram their head full of having your knees right on the pole so you can slide this buck squeeze up, and just the awkward way it is to climb with a fall restraint. So I don't know how likely that is, but in my perfect world, like, I would like to have guys out there free climbing, you know, with a harness on, whatever. I don't care. Let them be scared. Like, put a little slack into the rope on their harness, so you're going to fall a couple feet and feel that feeling, and not want to fall, because that's what keeps your technique good, is not wanting to fall. Like, I've never gapped out of a pole because I really don't want to fucking fall.
Feeling that 2-inch drop of death when your belt slips.
Oh yeah.
You think you're dying. Yeah.
Yep.
It's gone. No, I used to be honest, used a buck squeeze. We haven't used buck squeeze up here. We've been able to use like Jelco or whatever.
Sure.
I used a buck squeeze for the first time a few weeks ago. And, yeah, I'm not really sure what to think. I've had Buckingham on the show. I've had Andy Batty from Buckingham on the show, and I respect what they've done, but I agree with you. It's taken a lot of that fear is what keeps people engaged in what they're doing and teaches them to stay on the friggin' pole, not fall off of it. And
yep.
they are losing it. So I'm trying to figure out how to help train guys, because I'm going to be responsible for this, is training pre-apps, how to climb and how to train this into them using the things that we have today. Like I had this one idea of like building an obstacle pole. Like, so like 4 feet off the ground, putting a cross arm on, 4 feet above that, putting an arm on another way, and then putting 12 feet of plastic on either side of the pole to get their feet going. And then just have like an obstacle pole, right? That you gotta learn foot placement and working around the pole. I don't know how else to treat these guys. Like, I don't believe that up downs, like you see so many schools just doing up downs, and I just don't believe in a straight, let's just do up downs all day long. Well, like it's like
the problem you get is that and you got these guys that they can climb a pole, they can get up there fine, like whether it looks pretty or not, like they all get up there because they have the buck squeeze. And these guys get up there and they have no clue about body positioning, no clue how to manipulate their belt, no clue how to step up in their belt, step down, twist around, like just lost. And they've always got one hand on something besides what they're working on. Like, spin the fuck around. Like, there's so many things you can do from one position of your belt, and so much you can reach. Flip upside down, climb, like,
yes.
And so you're sitting there watching these guys transfer their secondary over and then under and then in between and all this stuff, and just makes me sick because it's not necessary. But no one knows how to step up in their belt and just be uncomfortable for a couple minutes. Like, yeah, it's not a great angle, but it helps so much in the real world.
But you got to do it. And that's what I want to try to train guys in doing before they actually get to the field to do it, because you're 100% right. Like, you get to an easement pole and there's 2 dips on the pole and there's all kinds of telecom and there's just shit freaking everywhere. You got to climb past that. Most guys are just going to free climb past that.
Right.
You know, and belt when they get above it. But okay, we're not going to do that now because it's not politically correct to even say that. Hypothetically, that's what we were going to do. So if you got a belt around the shit, at least you got to figure out how to put your feet on the pole to get above that. So doing an up down on a bare pole isn't going to teach anybody shit.
Yeah.
Okay, now you get up to that position, and now you got to work a jack on one side of the pole, and then you got to work a jack on the other side of the pole.
Yep.
How are you moving on there? Like, how are you going to do that? You're not fucking around like jocking yourself over. Like, you need to swing and jack on that, and then swing over and jack on, like, whatever.
Right.
Like, I want to be able to teach these guys this because that's real world scenario, and they're going to figure that out as soon as they leave school. You know, school's going to teach you one way, but I want to teach them that in school.
Well, and you got a pretty good idea, because you could almost just go up this pole and have just a paint mark that they have to keep their belt in between, And then there's 4 other positions where they have to reach it without moving their belt. Tie 5 knots on top of the pole, jack on this side, jack on that side, and then fucking pound a screwdriver. Like something where you have to do all 4 positions from one belt location.
That's a solid idea. I didn't think of that one. I like the obstacle pole, but I like the paint marks too. I'm gonna incorporate that.
Yeah,
That's a decent idea. You get up to this spot, you got to keep your belt here, and you got to do every task I've asked you to do within that. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's decent. That's better than up downs and friggin'
absolutely
toss a ball back and forth. Like I'm so over to the traditional shit that they try to get you to do. I want something that's effective and that's actually going to help guys learn some shit. So
I'd like to see a few less videos of these retards posting their climbing videos at climbing school too, because they are horrendous. Oh my God. Makes me sick.
I get it though. Like I do understand. Like I didn't have that when I started. I remember when I first started, I used to get people hacked on me. I've always been like a photographer, videographer, like I've always had photography. So I bought this, like this was back in the 2000s, like bought this little Nikon Coolpix, one of the first digital cameras. I used to tape it like black tape to a shovel handle. We call it the shovel cam. And I'd stick it in the ground as a helicopter would come in. I'd go like stick this thing in, hit and it shot, like it's so blurry. I still have the footage, but I can't even post it on social. It's so friggin' blurry. So I get it. It's a cool job and people like want to take cool pics and videos.
It is. Just perfect it. Like take your videos, put them out there, but at least perfect it. Make sure you're doing it the right way before you put some garbage out there that you're going to regret 10 years from now being that guy.
True story. What do you think about communication? Communication's a big topic, but what do you think about just to start with, what do you think about communication in the trade in general?
Like working like on a job site, or are you talking about just the gossip of all the linemen being intertwined?
So I guess it's, like I said, it's a big question. So there's that, and in the trade in general, just like I try to highlight how important communicating is to like, so as a leader, to be able to effectively communicate, you need to be able to understand and communicate in written or verbal form. So just how important learning those skills are as to a leadership, how important learning written and verbal communication skills are. Let's start with that. And then how important communicating to your crew, like as a leader, like what the plan is for the day and direction we're going and things like that. Like what's your experience with those sorts of things?
Yeah. Very critical. And so like every crew, you have your tailboards, and so you'll get a lot of foremen who will go through and they'll read this tailboard that they wrote. And I don't actually tend to do that very much on mine. Like I'll read through it, but it's just kind of the formal part. And then I'll just gather the guys around and we'll just kind of bullshit more than anything about the job and the direction that I'm going. And so I'll just kind of walk them through, you know, what we're going to do and why we got all the trucks set up where, and then see what my lead guy thinks about it, if he's on board with it. And then if he's not, you know, listening to what he's got to say and taking it into consideration. And if I still don't like his, telling him why I didn't go that route and why I wanted to go this route. And so like my first 2 years pushing the crew, I was not like that. This is the fucking way we're going to do it because I'm in charge. And you learn real quick that doesn't usually work out that well. And I've learned a lot just by listening. Majority of the time we'll go with, you know, my initial, you know, assessment of it. Cause I put a lot of thought into it before I, you know, get to the job. And when I don't use my way and I do use the other guy's way, even if I like my way better, sometimes I'll go with the other guy's way. If he's my lead and that's the way he wants to do it, because that's the way he sees it, then, you know, that'll gain his respect for me and my respect for him. And, you know, and then if it doesn't go exactly the way I want, I can tell them like, see, this is the reason why I kind of wanted to go this route versus the way you did it, but it's no big deal. It's all good. And the next time they'll be like, well, you were right last time. And so it's actually being a lot softer and a lot less dictator like than most people would probably guess.
I love that. And that's different than a lot of the ways it's done in the trade, because that builds trust amongst your guys and amongst the crew, right? Allowing them to have an opinion. First off, allowing them to have an opinion and a voice to be heard, and then going with the thing or the route that they're talking about is important to do once in a while too. Like you said, even if you know it's not going to go like you think it could or like it should, but allowing that to happen so they can go through that process, I think that builds a ton of trust. And going forward, they're really going to trust your opinion even more now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's huge.
And I learned to kind of after the fact break down and be like, hey, I would have put my hoist here for these reasons and these reasons, or shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, kind of afterwards breaking it down why that was the route that I would have gone. And it's usually pretty helpful.
Do you do a lot of after, like, I don't know, the military calls it like after action reports or whatever, but like debriefs? Do you do a lot of like, let's get together and like talk about what we did or what we didn't do and how we could do it better? Or do you just kind of like off to the show up and get ready for the next day?
It depends on what the scope of the work was. If it was, a complex job, then I'll usually get with my guys after, not as formally as, a lot of people, try to make it seem, but it just kind of, like I said, just bullshit about it. Like, hey, like, so this is what we all learned on this. Like, maybe we can put the pole on this quarter, whatever else next time. And just, the same thing you do with a football team or anything else. You get a better game plan moving forward, and who's good at what. Because my big thing is I want the same guys to do the same thing on every pole, on every whatever. Like, same guy jump on the line truck, because that guy's going to get good at it. He's going to get good at knowing who's on the ground, giving him signals. They're going to know each other. It's just all about repetition and building camaraderie through repetition. And that's how you actually build a real crew, not by having the best of the best on your crew, because then you're dealing with egos and everything else. Just actually meshing together and buying into the same philosophy.
And allowing each individual to be good at what they're good at. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And to highlight
you
that,
you can make a bang up crew from misfits. Like, you really can.
Yeah. No, I believe fully in that. I think more people need to do that. Like, I know lots of guys in the trade hoard the guys that they know or grew up with or know that are good, and they want to keep them tight and together. But there's value in jumping around a little bit and seeing what else is out there and trying to get other guys to mesh together.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it always sucks initially going to a new crew or something, but most of the time you're pretty happy with how things work out. Even if there's a couple guys that you don't like, you learn, or you have good stories from it at least.
True story. So I've had you for over an hour, Ben. I'm stoked that you've been able to do this. Get into a couple of closing questions, I guess. Self-study, reading books, listening to podcasts, like anything like that you do to like keep up on leadership skills or improve on better, or you just truck ahead as yourself?
No. Yeah. I've actually, especially over the last 3 years, went through a pretty difficult divorce, a difficult breakup with my girlfriend after that. And then, not having my kids around like I'm used to. Really dove into, doing some self-work and trying to figure out how to be the best version of myself. And so it's not a very popular thing for linemen to talk about, but fuck, I don't give a shit. Like, you have to work on yourself. And, I had issues. Like, I was in a marriage that I didn't belong in. And so I came home every day, and no matter how much I tried to hype myself up, I was just a disgruntled son of a bitch, just not happy. And so that overflowed onto, you know, the type of dad I was being and the type of friend I was being, type of employee I was being, everything. And so I left that marriage and have really been on a, you know, self-discovery of trying to, you know, be a good person without losing my edge as a lineman, which is difficult at times for sure. But, you know, a lot of it just comes with taking some time yourself. Like, you know, I've taken some time off to just not be all about work. And so it might sound a little contradictory, but, you know, I've been balls to the walls in this trade for almost 16 years now, and it takes a toll on you. You know, all of 2019, I was working 100-hour weeks, and, you know, it's not good, you know, physically, mentally. So it's taking some time off, like saving up, taking time off, and then just digging into yourself and, you know, why you make the choices that you make. So pretty happy with my development and, you know, the direction I'm heading. Far from perfect. I got a lot of work to do still, but, you know, definitely on the right track now.
A lot of guys don't do that part. Like, that is so true. The guys chase, and I want to get this out to guys too. Like, don't just chase job after job after job. Take time for yourself, take time for your family in between that. Like, the work is there and will always be there. Like, really consider how you're setting your life up. And I'm not about to tell anybody how to set themselves up financially, because all you get is a big fuck you if you say that.
Yeah.
But literally just consider how you're setting yourself up so that you can take some time off, because if you don't take the time off, it's going to cost you all of that plus. Yep. In the end, it's going to cost you all of that money plus relationships, and not just relationships with your significant other, but your kids, your family, like yep. Whatever. You're going to pay for it in one way or another. And chasing job after job after job after job, I'm telling you, I'm same situation as you. And I don't know, like, there's guys that have pulled it off, and I got to hand it to those guys, those people that have pulled it off, but really consider it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, we see the guys that pulled it off, but were they actually a good husband the whole time, you know, or were they just lying and doing what they wanted on the road, you know? So it's, you know, whatever works for you, but, you know, all I can say is that since, you know, separating and, you know, starting being divorced, I've never had a better relationship with my kids, and it makes no sense because I don't see them near as often as I did, but it's 100 times better than it was when I was in that bad situation. So if anybody else is going through anything where there's like, I can't stand being around her, you don't like who you are, you know, it works for me. Like, it took me a long time to leave, but I'm glad I did, because not only am I better and my kid's better for it, but so is my ex. Like, it was good for her too. It wasn't the situation that she needed to be in either.
I'm glad you said that. Like, and good for you for saying things like this, because same scenario, just better off. I've never had more quality time with my kids than I have being separated. And Absolutely. It sucks to be able to say that. And you have so many opinions from so many people out in the world that say, you need to do this and you need to do that. And you need to get her back, or you need to, like, make it work. And, like, yep. Cancel all the noise and look at yourself first. Go inward. Don't go to the exterior. Go inward and what's going to be best for you. Because if you can't do what's best for you first, you're not going to be able to show up for everyone else that you need to show up for. And that includes your kids. So you got to do what's good for you. So the same sort of thing. I did what was going to benefit me. And through that, I've been able to show up for my kids in a way that I was never doing before.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You know, and you tend to get real hard in this trade. And you got to be soft around your kids. You have to be able to let them in. You have to be able to, give them what they need. And so the hardest thing for me was being a mom and a dad. Like, it's hard to, get all the food and remember snacks and comfy blankets and all this other bullshit that's important to kids. Cause as dad, like, that doesn't matter. Like, we're going to fucking Disneyland, but like just having to evolve into, a mom also, it's been remarkable. And so that's what's really helped take our, mine and my kids' relationship to the next level.
Cool. Have you got anything, like, have you read any books or listened to any podcasts or shit like that you want to recommend for people? Or
yeah, shoot, I can't remember. I listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of audiobooks while traveling down the road. Shoot, I can't remember the name of the one. Is really good. Yeah, I'm not gonna find it. I listened to it probably about 6 months ago. Another good one, Matthew McConaughey, his autobiography was super good
man.
too.
He just, is that his book that he just came out with?
Yep.
Yeah, man. He was doing his little tour and talking on all the podcasts and trying to promote his book. And so I think I've listened to a story on the Tim Ferriss show to start with. And yeah, it was phenomenal, man. Like, that dude's legit. I really,
for sure.
I didn't realize how legit Matthew McConaughey was, but his story was freaking dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's in rom-coms and shit, but then you actually he's just a Texas boy. Like, that dude's badass. Like, he's a cool dude, and he's got a great story. Like, I listened to it twice. I'd listen to it again.
Yeah. And he was literally on every podcast. So, like, if anyone wants to listen to it, but the one I listened to was on the Tim Ferriss show. I think it was one of his first ones there, but when he was promoting his book. Well, cool, buddy. Anything else that you really got on your heart to share to the community, or?
No, just step up, keep everybody around you accountable. Like, don't let stupid shit happen around you just because you don't want to say anything. Like, hurt some feelings, get it out there. What you're thinking or, want to say, everybody else is probably thinking. I usually provide that vocalism. And sometimes it's controversial, but get it out there, call somebody out, and it's for the greater good, keeping everybody safe. And so that's my only advice is step up.
Have the balls to step up too. Like, literally
Absolutely.
say what needs to be said. That's important, because what you speak up against will affect your entire crew. Like, I was talking about this with somebody today, actually, talking about a string and setup, and how one string and setup, you got the puller end, tensioner end. The puller end's like, oh, that fucking tensioner end, blah, blah, blah. They don't know what's going on. You know what? One guy has a step touch incident on the tensioner end. It still affects the whole friggin' job. It's still your crew. It's still the whole job. It's still a guy got hurt or a guy died or whatever it is. So speak up.
Well,
and have balls to do that.
And the other thing too is that there's probably nobody better at talking shit about people than linemen. Like, we are really good at talking shit about people, and I'll talk shit about people, but it's not going to be behind their back. Like, you're going to know what I think and what I'm saying. Nut up and tell, like, in the morning meeting when someone says something stupid, someone up, call them on it. Like, don't go off your little group, to your buddy where it's safe to say what you feel. Like, no, man up, because that's what a leader is. Like, it might not be popular. You might make somebody cry, like, whatever. But just say it, and you'll gain respect by doing that too, unless you're saying something dumb.
Well, then you'll know too, right?
Yep, you'll know that also.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for your time.
All right, Ryan. Yep, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Cool, buddy.